Episode 9, everyone. What's up? You're watching Kicked Back. Liam, Caroline here with you. Liam, what's poppin'?
A lot.
I know.
A lot is popping. We had a full fixture list on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Honestly.
And then one more game today, Manchester United versus Leicester. So that's a big game just for both teams, really, because United keep momentum going, get 3 in a row, and Leicester, get a win. So so Brett on the Sunday League Pundits was like, "Oh, Leicester's going to get relegated." I said no.
Okay.
So, and he didn't say this year, he said within the next 5 years. So I'm kind of banking on them getting a win just to get that off me a little bit.
Well, I'm hoping that we see Casemiro today and Anthony. So I'm curious to see how United comes out. Also, what's going to go on with Ronaldo, because we know that even if he isn't on the pitch, we're talking about him more than anyone.
Yeah.
I just love, me not being a United fan makes me love the drama around it. And I wouldn't mind seeing Leicester take a W.
I was thinking that too, actually. It's like, because I was looking at the betting odds, and United are United are the favourites, Leicester are the underdogs, and I was like, oh, you know what, like maybe home game, primetime game, really, with no other games going on, like maybe this is Leicester's time to push through. We'll see. They need it big time. This almost feels like what United felt like going into the Liverpool game a little bit, like it's like a needed win, but we'll know now on Tuesday, I guess, when we talk again.
Yeah, I can't wait. And like you said, the last 2 days, there's been just so many football matches, which is, of course, the best ever. But yesterday, I was trying to decide which Premier League game I wanted to watch. And I started with the Arsenal game. And then when I kept getting these notifications to my phone that Haaland was scoring, I'm like, I need to switch the channel because this guy might have back-to-back hat tricks, which he indeed did have. So I want to welcome everyone to an Erling Haaland math class right now, because in 19 minutes, he scored a hat trick against Crystal Palace. In 23 minutes, he scored a hat trick against Nottingham Forest. He had 6 goals in 1 hour, 9 goals in 5 games in the Premier League, and he's making the best league in the world look slightly amateur right now, Liam.
Yeah, so there was another stat too. He's the first Premier League player to score 7 goals in August. I
mean, come on.
And he now boasted that to 9 because he's got 2 more in the game. And he's just, you know what? The thing I wrote in my notes about him was he just scores the easiest goals. And it's not disrespect to him, but he's just putting himself in the perfect position.
Which to me is almost more respect because he's an efficient footballer. You work smarter, not harder.
It's like the joke we spoke about last week where it's like, oh, he only had 8 touches against whoever it was the other day. Bournemouth, I think it might have been. And it's like, yeah, but he got an assist and like he did his job. And it's just like, you don't need to touch. So if he made, I believe the first goal he scored yesterday was his own second touch of the game because he might have done the kickoff.
Which honestly,
crazy.
If I'm Pep, I'm like, That to me is I want a player who does that. I'd rather have a player who doesn't touch the ball as much but can turn it around to a goal, as opposed to a player who has all these incredible touches on the ball but can't translate it to a goal. Mm-hmm. So that stat for Haaland, I know a lot of people laugh about how many touches he has in a game, but the guy's converting it to a goal.
Yeah, so just looking here, he's averaging 21 passes per game. And he's, what, we now 4 or 5 games in, whatever it is, and 9 goals. That's kind of hilarious, isn't it? It's just, what are we doing here?
Honestly, and one of my favorite parts about him is he scores so many different kinds of goals. Mm-hmm. He gets up for a header. He can shoot the ball. He can slot the ball. He bodies people off the ball.
Yep.
He gets rebounds. I mean, this guy's an absolute complete striker, and it cracks me up that when people said he was coming into the Prem, they're like, he's not going to do well because he's not built for this league. To me, he's 100% built for this league, and he's 100% built for a team like City.
I don't think the league's built for him.
Right? Like, yeah, guys. See, that's perfectly said.
Are people prepared for him? Like, off the top of my head, I can't really think of many strikers that are so dangerous in so many ways that have come through the league. Obviously, there's got to be some, but right now, like, he's really establishing himself as arguably the best player in the Premier League. Like, it's an interesting take because on one sense, he doesn't do much away from the ball. Like, he's like, you got Harry Kane, for example, who's coming in, looking for the pass, trying to feed everybody else, set up other guys, where Haaland's he's on that last man. He's waiting for that ball to come through. And I believe yesterday, natural hat trick.
Yes.
So, that just shows how dynamic he is. And you were saying he scores in multiple ways. Like when he scored against Crystal Palace, they were all 3 different goals. Honestly. Like, he's just so fun to watch. And it's fun it's not even necessarily him that's the fun guy to watch. Like, obviously he is, but like just the way City ding it around and he's like, oh, empty net. Haaland taps it in. It's like, there he is again.
That's exactly it. And it's crazy to think, again, that this is his first season in the Premier League. Like, he's month one done things that players haven't done in their entire span in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So that, and when you talk about the way that Man City kind of passes the ball, there was, I think, the second goal in particular that they scored. It was unbelievable. Just go watch it if you haven't seen it. The way they controlled the ball, the way they quickly find each other, one-touch football. I think that this team right now, and I spoke to it on our last episode, above even how mentally tough they are, they're so aware of where they are on the pitch and each player's strengths. Yeah. This Man City team actually scares me. I might be very wrong with my Real Madrid take, and maybe I should have waited a little bit more time to watch City play, and I'm fine with being wrong. But this City team, I think the only team who can compete with them might be a very high-class Real Madrid team that we hopefully will see them play each other in a Champions League final.
Yeah, I hope so, or even just along the way anytime.
Right? I know.
I don't want to say this too early, but it feels like the league is gone.
I think it may be.
And it's funny we say that because the last 2 weeks with Palace and Newcastle, they were challenged. Mm-hmm. Newcastle and Crystal Palace, to their respect, really gave City games. They were up 2-0 on both teams. And we'll see, I guess. We'll have a better picture when they play a top 6 team, quote unquote, which is probably pretty soon, I would imagine. I don't have the schedule figured out right in front of me. Here we go. Tottenham is the next game. Next home game. Great. Is Tottenham. Then they have Villa next. So that's right. We spoke about that on Tuesday. Good luck.
Poor George.
Aston Villa. So we'll see what kind of goes about. It's a hot start to the season. Arsenal have had a great start too. We'll see what happens when those two collide. And who knows, even with Liverpool, they're missing their entire midfield is out for the count right now. Matip as a defender as well. That's a massive hole for them. Even Darwin Núñez, if we want to go down that road as well. We'll see him. I believe his 3 games is up now. I think he'll be available next game. So we'll see what happens there. At the point last season, it looked like the season was gone and going in City's favor, and then Liverpool really made a push in the second half of the year. So hopefully we get a title challenge. Right now, I don't see it, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, what do you think? Because I have this in my notes. I wanted to ask you. Right now, Arsenal's leading the Premier League, which they've been great. And their game yesterday, they played really good. They should have been up, I'd say, 2-3 goals in the first 10 minutes against Aston Villa. And then Aston Villa kind of calmed it down, which was good for them. They needed that. But how long can they hang on to that lead until, the big boys who are City come banging on their door?
Yeah, I think we'll... you see, I'm looking at the schedule. So they have Manchester United at Old Trafford this upcoming Sunday.
Can't wait.
That'll be a good game. If United win today, I think that'll help it a lot. Then you have Everton at home. Then you have Brentford away. And then the big one on October 1st, Tottenham. So you got a big derby there. I think that's when we'll get a real good image of what this Arsenal team is about. Even Brentford will give them a game. We saw what they did to United. And I think when those big teams go to a team like Brentford, the fans are always up for it. So these next 4 games for Arsenal, I think, will really paint a good image of where they're at. I do think they're legit title contenders. Do I think they're good enough to win? Maybe a couple of pieces away. But they're playing like they know how to win. And I think that's the key thing in all of this is confidence is on Arsenal's side right now, and there isn't really a reason to go against them, I don't think. A lot of people are saying how they haven't played very tough teams. To start the season, they had Palace. Good team away, good win. Leicester at home. We've now seen what this Leicester team's about. It's not as good. Bournemouth, comfortable win. Fulham gave them a challenge. They came from behind. And then Villa yesterday at home, who gave them a game. They've had to go through some resilience tests, I think, and they've come out on the other side with wins and 3 points. And at the end of the day, that's what matters in Premier League. 100%.
And I think resilience wins should count for something. Even Man City, when everyone's now saying... it drives me crazy. They're saying City's only played farmers teams. We've gone from the Farmers League to now Farmers team, but they've found ways to battle back. And we spoke to this last show, being a goal down, being 2 goals down, that counts for something. And if Arsenal has been there and done that as well, that counts for something. Gabriel Jesus is also an electric player to watch. And I remember you saying that you think he's one of the best players in the Prem right now.
Yeah, when the first few weeks I thought he was easily the best player in the league. He was so exciting. And I think he is still one of the best at the moment.
He was feeling it yesterday. So that's it's a team that I always get excited when I talk to Arsenal fans. There was an Arsenal fan here in the office the other day. I said, it must be an exciting time for you guys right now, but it's so funny to hear it because there's trauma around Arsenal fans, and they're like, yeah, but this is how it always starts. We don't know how it's going to end, but I think this year's different.
It feels different.
Yeah.
It feels like Arteta's got his tactics in place, and it's working too well for it to go horribly wrong. It almost feels like,
knock on wood for you guys.
By no means do I think Arsenal are going to win 38 games, but I don't think there's a reason to think they won't finish in the top 3 at the moment, especially when you see the way Chelsea have rolled into the season. And like Tottenham, yes, they're undefeated, but I feel like they're still going through growing pains with Conte a little bit. And City, like we spoke about, unbelievable. And that kind of leaves Arsenal just kind of waiting there being like, well, what about us? Why can't we be the team that goes above those 3 teams and really challenges City for the title? Like Liverpool, like who knows when all their players are going to come back fully fit. And now here we are again. There's 5 teams and 3 of them have massive question marks. And then Arsenal and City is like, okay, well, you're both playing really well. So why shouldn't we believe in both of you?
Arsenal definitely deserve to be in the conversation. We'll get to Liverpool and Newcastle in just 1 second because Liverpool fans hate me right now. And honestly, it's crazy because I don't hate Liverpool. I just talk about the game the way I see it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they like it, but that's not my fault. They should be unhappy with their team.
I was going to say, if they don't like it, then they should be better.
I agree. Okay, but firstly, before we move on, I just kind of want to say one thing about the quote-unquote Farmers League comments that players get. When Erling Haaland was at Dortmund, he scored almost 1 goal per game. Mm-hmm. When Lewandowski played for Bayern Munich, he broke a Bundesliga scoring record and scored the 5 goals in 9 minutes. When these guys do that, everyone say it's because they play in a farmers league. Now Haaland is in the best league in the entire world, and he's making everyone around him look like children. Lewandowski is playing in La Liga and has 4 goals in 3 games. Everyone needs to stop with the farmers league narrative and sit back and maybe just realize that no matter what league these guys are in, we have the privilege to watch footballers put in work and become unbelievable players. Yep. It doesn't make sense, and I'm so tired of just equating a player's or team's success to the league that they're in. And these guys are right now proof that it can be done in any league.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? As long as they go to a different league and prove that it can be done, then like, not to shit on Messi a little bit, but like he went to Ligue 1 and couldn't get it done
6
right
goals
away.
in his first season.
Like he obviously still played well and he had his 14 assists, I believe it was. But sometimes it's difficult to transition into these leagues.
100.
Premier League to Bundesliga, like it's kind of becoming a bit of a feeder league, I feel like, in a small way. And for Haaland to come into the Premier League and do what he's doing, like you said, like no one scored 7 goals in August before and he's just doing it. And then you get Lewandowski and it just shows the quality of these players and how good they truly are and how special they are and how much we should actually appreciate what they're able to do on a weekly basis.
1,000%. Because if you hear back-to-back hat tricks in the Premier League, which we know when you play football's not like hockey, right? Like it's very hard to score 1 goal, let alone 3, let alone in back-to-back games. You could sit back and say, oh, yeah, that's a farmers league. What was the other team's back line even there? But no, we know that the Prem, and this is a league where any team can do anything. We saw it with Leicester, is a good league, and these guys are just phenomenal footballers. So I'm tired of the Farmers League comments, and even look at Neymar, what he's doing this season. Yes, is Ligue 1 maybe not as dominant as other leagues across Europe? Sure, but that doesn't take away from what Neymar is doing.
Yeah, and I think the whole Farmers League conversation is really getting out of hand.
I agree.
Like you said, like we're getting into farmers teams now, and it's just like, are we really at this level?
Honestly.
At the end of the day, like, yes, I think a league like the Bundesliga is struggling with its identity of competitiveness for a championship every single year. Like Bayern Munich is walking away with it. There's no arguing that point. However, I think when you actually look around, it's really competitive throughout the league itself. I said it a couple of weeks ago, and you look at La Liga as well. You know what? I think La Liga is becoming more messy than Bundesliga, to be honest. Like, I think in La Liga, you even get teams like Sevilla now who are dropping off because they're just getting players poached for the Premier League. And it's an interesting thing. At the end of the day, it all comes down to money with these leagues. And the Premier League is absolutely stacked with money right now. Like, Nottingham Forest getting players, being speculated with players who were like supposed to play in the Champions League. It's like, now you go to Nottingham Forest for the opportunity to just be in the league and have more eyes on you. Like even yesterday, West Ham signed a player from Lyon. It's like, well, he was Lyon's best player, and Wolves are getting players from Sporting. It's like, well, he was in the Champions League. Like, why is he going there? And it's just, these other leagues can't compete with the Premier League on that level financially, and it's damaging those leagues. But if you take that away, I think the appreciation of these leagues aren't farmers leagues. There's actually a lot of competition outside of different things. And if we really want to call it a farmers league, like, why is the Premier League not a farmers league then? At the end of the day, like, City and Liverpool are the best two teams in the league, supposedly, and like they ran away with the league last year, and we have this big six. It's like, well, I don't know if 6 teams can win the Premier League every year.
You know what? It's perfectly said, and I'm so curious to see if City runs away with the league title way ahead of any other team and earlier than anyone expected. What's going to be, what is everyone going to say about that?
Yeah, I'm with you.
We'll see.
Like I said, like we were kind of talking yesterday, it's like, oh, well, is Haaland going to get 20 goals before the World Cup break? Like, if he does, what does it say about the Premier League at this point? Like, I love the Premier League. I do believe that on any given week, anybody can beat anybody.
That's why we love it.
But right now, we're seeing City just absolutely roll over Bournemouth and Forest, who are new teams in the league, and even Liverpool last week with Bournemouth just absolutely dominating them. And it's just like, I think it's an interesting conversation. We'll have a way better picture in like 10 or 15 games, but right now I think it's something to keep an eye on.
100%. And just Haaland, I think that if he can, when I said my take before the league, like the season started, saying 26 goals, I was like, okay, maybe I'm reaching a little. I think
I said 24.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I'm reaching. But now I'm like, this guy could, if he keeps this up.
It's going to be, I think the last person to score 30 in the Premier League was Luis Suarez.
Was it, hey?
I think it was.
And he just broke Suarez's record yesterday.
Yeah.
So maybe he's breaking another Suarez record.
Let me double check on that. But I believe Suarez scored 32 one year, and that was the last person. It is incredibly hard to score 30 in the Premier League. I think for a long time only Kevin Phillips, who played for Sunderland, was the last player. It was the first player to do it. So Salah, of course, scored 32 in 2018. Okay. Before that, it was Suarez in 2014. Van Persie's done it.
Oh, Van Persie.
Ronaldo's done it. Henry's done it.
The biggest names. The biggest names in football have done it.
Only 5 players have done it.
And these are elite status, like legendary status players.
Yeah. Andy Cole, Alan Shearer, Mo Salah, Cristiano Ronaldo, Suarez, and Kevin Phillips. Kevin Phillips is just a good Premier League player.
Good old Kevin Phillips.
Scored 30 goals one year.
His claim to fame. All right, Liverpool, Newcastle.
Yes, my team.
Your team. Talk to me, Liam. Are you proud of them? Are you proud of the performance / how much money did Liverpool pay the refs? Kidding, guys. Liverpool fans, don't come for me.
I think when you look at the Newcastle team that they went in with, like St. Maximin didn't play, Bruno didn't play in the midfield. Even the 2 centre-backs are out of the game as well. Yeah. Like, there was a lot of change to the team and literally took last kick of the game to win. I think Newcastle have a lot to take away from the game. And this was something I was worried about. Someone commented it in my TikTok that I put out about Newcastle being a good, like, pushing for a Champions League spot, but not quite getting there. He said that, like, this team probably doesn't have enough depth right now. And I don't think he's wrong. Like, you look at the team they played yesterday, like Ryan Fraser played for them, Sean Longstaff. Like, these guys aren't European quality players. But I think the X factor is Eddie Howe with the manager. And they put out a great performance with a weakened team against a Liverpool team, which, to be fair, was also weak. They were missing probably 4 players. But at the end of the day, like, Newcastle were like 16th or something last season until the money came in with these players. They shouldn't be going to Anfield and getting a 98th minute loss put on their hands.
Man, and again, my dad's the biggest Liverpool fan, so I will never, ever talk too much shit on them. But I'm tired of the injuries excuse because even your team, when it's not fully stacked, should be putting on a better performance. Like when you look at the players they still had on the pitch, they should be winning the game.
Yeah, I agree with you as well.
So stop with the injuries because, yeah, it sucks. And of course, the team's dealing with adversity, but you're looking at the players that they have. They should be, no offense to Newcastle, but based on the year that they had last year, they should be figuring it out in games like that.
Yeah, and there's a big thing for me that I even tweeted about this.
Ooh,
this is how annoyed I was.
Tell me the tweet.
So I probably turned on the game shortly after Alexander Isak scored for Newcastle. And to be, this is nothing I'm saying is like wrong in the sense of what happened, but like Newcastle players were on the ground a lot, like wasting time, like cramping, like every time there was contact, they went down. And Liverpool didn't like it. They were like trying to pick players up off the ground and like yelling at the ref and stuff. It's like, did everyone just forget on Saturday when Fabio Carvalho was rolling around in the box and it was 9-0?
Love it.
The disrespect that showed was unbelievable.
I love that you said that.
I couldn't believe it. And then I mentioned it on Tuesday too, like Bournemouth's goalie goes to pick him up and he clearly says something to him, like, get up. I'm sure it wasn't that polite, and then he gets up immediately. It's like, you want to roll around and complain and all this stuff when you don't get the calls, but when somebody else does it, it's like completely wrong. It's like, no. Like, this isn't a double standard. Just because you've won the Premier League once, it doesn't give you any kind of extra privileges or anything like that. You are just Liverpool versus Newcastle. There is equality on the field, and it's given in every sense. And Liverpool, just quit complaining. Go win games. You're supposed to be the second best team in the league, and you can't even beat. You can barely beat, a reserve Newcastle team.
Yeah, I just love that you said that. And again, no disrespect to this Liverpool team, but I just feel like it's our job to talk about the facts. And the facts are that I don't want to say this, so they just seem like they're a little whiny to me. They're the whiny child of the Premier League.
And it's the leaders that are doing it. Like Jordan Henderson is brutal for it. Milner's
started on him.
He was doing it to his teammates. Usually he's pretty level-headed, but I noticed it like when we were talking about them the other week against United, and it's just like, what are we doing here? Like you are supposed to be winning these games comfortably, and you are just, I'm sure it's a level of frustration with themselves because they know they're underachieving, but it shouldn't take 98 minutes to beat a reserve Newcastle team right now.
100%. And also, I dissected kind of the goal that Newcastle scored yesterday. And I just am very curious to see how Liverpool will play against a really good team with a very good attacking line. Mm-hmm. I know that sometimes teams will get up for those big games. And again, no disrespect to Liverpool because it is still early in the season. They can figure it out. But that goal in particular, like Alexander-Arnold giving it away so badly. It was such a bad pass right into the middle of the park. Van Dijk, I'm a fan of Van Dijk, but I just want more urgency from him. Like it's almost like he's going at half speed. And then just the slotted ball through the back line. The way teams are finding ways to score against Liverpool is way too easy for me, knowing the year that they had last year where they could have won the quadruple. Yeah. It's just kind of that they've set such a high standard for me and such a high bar that I'm watching certain moments this year and how teams are just walking through them. And I'm very confused. And they need to figure out that back line and even almost that midfield line before they start playing these top dogs.
Yeah. I think missing Joe Matip is big for them. I think he's quickly becoming better than Van Dijk. Yeah. Joe Gomez is a very interesting case because he's just been plagued with injuries, and before that he was a pretty good defender. But him coming back, there was all these stories about him possibly being in the England squad and stuff like that for the World Cup. I just don't see how he's even in the conversation at all. Like if they have his name on the whiteboard right now, like throw it out, like get it off the board. And credit to Andy Robertson, because I don't know if I've seen like one negative word against him, and there's this whole stigma against Trent where he's just a bad defender, which is fair. Like he hasn't really set anybody's views differently at the moment, and you never hear about Andy Robertson. Like they never attack left backs; they always attack the right back, and it's usually Trent. And I think it's just a credit to how good he actually is, and we've spoken about who the best left back in the world is quite often actually on this show.
It's too much maybe.
And Andy Robertson is right in that conversation.
Yeah, like maybe he's an underrated one.
I think he's underappreciated, definitely. Yep. And I like him. But yeah, as a whole, Liverpool need to be better and especially Fabinho. Like, Fabinho's such an interesting player because, yes, he makes it different on the field, but like when he's off his game, he makes a terrible impact on the field. He's an interesting case. We'll have to keep tracking him. Like, they have Everton this weekend, which is massive game, Merseyside derby, then Wolves at home, and then Chelsea away.
And Champions League.
And
Napoli and Ajax. Those are games where they'll be tested a little bit more against teams. These also, Napoli and Ajax are two teams that aren't necessarily like the hardcore favorites. Mm-hmm. So they could surprise them a little bit with the talent that they have in their starting 11.
I think the more I think about these Champions League groups, especially Group A, I love Group A so much.
We said that. Group A is the sleeper group that is like low-key the maybe most competitive.
Yeah, I don't know if an away team is going to go to one of these places, whether it's Napoli, Ajax, Liverpool, or Rangers, and win. Yeah. Like, I think there'll obviously be some, but it's going to be so difficult for any of these teams to win away from home. Like, I really don't know how this group's going to go, and the reason why is the home field advantage. It's huge.
I can't wait. Okay, quickly before we move on from Liverpool, Newcastle, I just want to say that when refs say 5 minutes of added time, it should end right at the 5-minute mark. Yeah. Because to have 7 or 8 minutes of additional time is nuts to me. There's no way that a team deserves to have that much added time. And Liverpool obviously putting everything away in the 97th or 98th minute. It's just so unfortunate for Newcastle. Am I happy to see teams do it? Because do I love a dramatic ending? Of course. I felt the same way with Tottenham, Chelsea. I'm not a fan of any of these teams, so it's fun for me just as a football fan to witness. But man, there's got to be more of a rule. Like in hockey, when the time's up, there's a siren, it goes off, it's done. Refs make it way too subjective.
Yeah, and do you know what the worst part about that goal was? Is how it could have been so avoided if they didn't try and clear it. Like, if Nick Pope had got that ball in his hands instead of it being flicked away from him, which I don't even think is anyone's fault, to be honest. It's instinctual. The game would have just been over at that point. But yeah, the extra time and added time is always a weird thing for me because it's just like, well, why did you even pick that? And I understand it's supposed to be like added time within the added time, I suppose, if something happens. But then we could play all day.
Honestly, is 90 minutes not enough?
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think sometimes it is necessary with stuff. So what it's supposed to be is, if there's a goal, you're supposed to add an extra 30 seconds because of celebration time and stuff like that.
Which kills me.
Substitutions are supposed to be like that too. So it's like, okay, well, you add that up, and I suppose like with VAR now we can miss half the damn game if with that
Honestly.
stuff. So I think obviously extra time is needed in that sense, but don't add extra time to the extra time. Just play what you said and just go with it. And if the only time I'm usually okay with it is if it hits 95, but a team's like on the attack.
Yes.
That's fine. But, Newcastle had the ball in Liverpool's end in like 96 minutes. Just like blow it up then. Like as soon as the ball gets turned over, it's like, okay, game over. 1-1. Good game, everybody. Time to go home.
I even think added time is just a scam. Like, I think it's such a scam. Unless it's really valid. I mean, what was that, the Euro Cup where that was horrible? The one player went down. Was it on Denmark?
Oh, yeah, the Christian Eriksen.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
So that I understand. That took a while. Players need time to regroup, get their emotions in check. I understand that. But I understand with VAR and maybe even substitutions, but goal celebrations is a part of the game. It's the ref's job to get everyone to the half, start the game. If there's a bad injury, stop your clock. But to have an additional 7-8 minutes, what has to happen in the game to get an additional? I bet you any money if we added it all up, it wouldn't have equaled 8 minutes.
No. So would you suggest adding a stop time?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
So in rugby, they do have stop time. You can stop the clock. However, if a player gets injured, the play doesn't stop.
Okay.
The physio just comes onto the field and starts attending to them. So sometimes they'll literally be like right next to the play, like you'll see on the TV, like funny. Someone's getting worked on. So it's like, it's interesting. I wonder if there's a way football could incorporate that too. But football is such an interesting sport in the sense of traditions. People don't want to sway away from what it is about. Like even VAR is so controversial, and it's funny because it's ruined so many games in the past without it. We've spoke about it before, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not against added time. I'm against added time in added time.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my thing.
It's just a snowball effect at this point, and Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that sucks for Newcastle, but they also should have been better in the dying minutes of the game, right? So it goes both ways. But Liverpool got very lucky. That's all I'm going to say. They got very, very lucky. And a win that they desperately needed. If they tied that game, it would have been bad.
That's it's a big win.
Yeah.
Like I said, like that's such a momentum win with how they've played, and like, you know, we'll see what happens next, especially going from a 9-0 to a push into the last second. It's a funny one.
It's the best point. Okay, Arsenal, Aston Villa. I started watching this game, like I said, and then I turned it off because I didn't want to miss the theatrics of Erling Haaland. Aston Villa, I know that I said that Arsenal kind of went hot out of the gate, had a few really good chances off the get, but Aston Villa did a pretty good job, Liam, from what I've read and what I've seen on highlights, staying into the game, and obviously the score reflects that too.
Yeah, I think the fact they were able to stay with it for so long, keep like it was 2-1 game, but the thing you really just hate to see about it is you get the goal, and did you see the goal, the corner goal?
Yes,
so they just did that the week before against Bolton. The same player did it. So Aston Villa put out a video of him practicing this.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of people were calling it a fluky goal, and it definitely is fluky, but this is something they practice quite often by the looks of it. So
you can't call that fluky.
It's fluky in the sense of it rarely happens in the game, but for that player to do it in basically the past twice in 10 days isn't fluky.
No,
if that makes any sense at all. But to just throw it all away literally 2 minutes later,
I know,
with just some horrible defending from Matty Cash, like, just let Martinelli go. And that's kind of the stuff that's plaguing Villa right now, is just mistakes after mistake after mistake. And it's just like, when is this unfortunate run for them going to kind of come to an end and pick up some wins? But on a positive spin, you went to the Emirates Stadium, put together a good game-ish, I guess you can call it, an improved performance. Like, you still didn't get a lot of offense going, only 4 shots in the game, no big chances, but they need to be better. It's not going to get easier with City this weekend away, but like we said, I think this next 5 games now for Gerrard is huge. We'll see. They really, really need it to get something against this team, and I think they got a little bit of just momentum. I don't know. It's hard to say what this team is, I suppose.
Okay, so if Steven Gerrard's coaching Bolton,
yes,
which is your team,
yes,
okay,
and if he does, that means Bolton are in the Premier League. So
yes. Let's say that, but let's just say Bolton right now is Aston Villa, and they played Arsenal, and they did a pretty good job, better than probably what people expected. Mistakes, but at the end of the day, got the L. They didn't get the 3 points that they needed. Are you taking into consideration as a fan that game looked better going into Manchester City? Or are you like, that's another loss for us and we're about to get blown out again against Manchester City and we need a change in our manager?
Honestly, when I answered the question about Gerrard, I tried to put myself in a Villa fan suit. So I just don't even take it as anything. Like, I take it as, we went there and we kind of got what we expected, but played probably a little bit better. To me, these 2 games just don't even matter. Like, and that sounds, when I would have looked at the fixture list to start the season, I wouldn't have thought, okay, we would have 1 win in our first 5 games. I would have looked at it being like, okay, well, we play Bournemouth, Everton, and Crystal Palace. We can at least win 2 of those, and then we have 3 tough ones in West Ham, Arsenal, and City. But then you're like, okay, well, at least we have 2 wins and there's some momentum. Now that's different because you have 1 win and you have no momentum, and now you're playing the best team in the world. So to answer the question, I would say, no, I'm not looking for a managerial change yet. I'm still waiting for these next games and hoping like that's. But then again, Southampton just beat Chelsea. So clearly these teams can be beaten from teams who are lower on the end of the table. But again, Villa's team is good enough to be competing for a European spot like Europa League, Conference League. They're not competing with Arsenal and City right now.
I love that because to me, you're a realistic fan, which I've been reading a lot of comments. There's a hashtag right now saying Gerrard out. Like a lot of Aston Villa fans, they said despite the legacy he had as a player, he's not doing it for us as a manager and they want him out. But you're seeing this from a realistic perspective, and that, you know, it's been a little bit, these next 2 games don't really matter. And he probably deserves a little bit more time before they pull the trigger on him.
I just think that's the way the board's going to approach it too.
Hopefully.
They've invested so much money in him with his name value and the players they've brought in that you've just got to look at this and be like, okay, do we want to pay this guy out? We just hired him. And I don't think they want to do that. Again, these next 4 games after City is what's going to make or break Gerrard.
Love it. You mentioned Chelsea, Southampton.
Yes.
It's funny because when I made, what was it, last week? I said that Southampton was going to beat United.
Yeah, Crystal Palace would. Oh no, you did say
I was my hot take, and one of my 9 hot takes that weekend. Like stuff's gonna happen this weekend. Everyone was like, "How could you pick Southampton?" And I'm just like, I'm not sold on United, which I believe they only won 1-0.
Yeah, it was super even game.
Yes,
Could have gone either way.
So it was very interesting to see Southampton beat Chelsea, Mr. Defensive team of the Premier League. Maybe Southampton deserves a little bit of more attention, and Chelsea, terrible loss, and they had a bad loss against Leeds, and here we are again with another one.
So, under Tuchel, what team we talk about? Chelsea, City, Liverpool, they're all running through my head.
They're all blue, I'm just kidding.
Chelsea hadn't got lost in the second half. They hadn't gone into halftime with
being down a goal. Okay.
Now they've done it in back-to-back weeks.
Wow.
Against opponents that were both in relegation battles last season. They're a very interesting team, and Tuchel seems to keep using the excuse of, I need more players, I need this, I need that. And it's like, well, you spend a lot of money in this transfer window, and this is also a very similar team to what you won the Champions League with. And it's just it's an interesting saying, a quote from him, because Kai Havertz doesn't have a goal this season. He's good for usually like a goal every 4 games, which isn't a very good rate for a striker. And I look at it and I feel like they've just put themselves in this situation from the players they've moved on from. Like today they signed Aubameyang from Barcelona, but I would consider him a downgrade over what they've had under Tuchel with Tammy Abraham, Lukaku. Like Werner, maybe he didn't work out as you expected, but gave you a good effort.
Yeah.
And he's probably had more goals disallowed than anybody ever in the Premier League, to be honest. It felt like every week he had a goal taken away, and it's an interesting group for Chelsea, and to lose against Southampton, who a lot of people had going down to start the season, and now you're looking at them like, okay, well, you put in a good performance against United, you come from behind against Leeds and get a point, and I believe they even beat Leicester. I'm trying to figure out who they played so far this season. There it is. So they've beat Leicester 2-1. They lost to Spurs, didn't look good first game of the season, drew 2-2, lost 1-0 to United, now just beat Southampton, and they beat Chelsea, and they're a young team. They got a lot of good players, and I think they actually might have enough to stay in the Premier League this season. I don't think they're going to be safe for most of the year. I feel like they'll be like 16th, 17th, but from a Chelsea thing, like you got to figure this out quick, because sooner or later, like those Champions League spots are like slowly slipping away from you.
Well, that's what, when we were going through our Champions League show, I was like, my most overhyped team is Chelsea, because in tournaments like Champions League, I mean, teams have done it. We saw Greece play in the Euro Cup defense for the entire thing and end up winning it.
Yeah.
But it's unlikely. That's like one of the only examples I can think of.
Yeah.
Chelsea going into a Champions League tournament with clubs that are playing on another level right now, players that are playing on another level right now. You can't play just solid 90 minutes defense every single game, especially when your defense, there's holes in it, because Leeds are finding a way to score. Southampton's finding a way to score. What are you going to do? This is a good thing for me being an AC Milan fan. What are you going to do when you have a top team in Italy or another Premier League, or a top team in Spain like Real Madrid take you on? It's going to be tough.
I think it's now back-to-back games. Koulibaly has not played well.
Which is interesting, because he played so well against Tottenham.
Yeah, he was really good against Tottenham, but now it's weird. It seems like he's really struggling with the pace at the way people are going against him. Like his red card was 2 stupid fouls, and the second one was just ridiculous. Like, why do you need to grab that guy and kind of wrestle him down? And I don't know. Like, they obviously have a ton of good players, but their issue is they're not scoring goals.
They're
not scoring. Like Aubameyang, yes, has a proven track record of being able to score goals in the Premier League, so I think he'll actually be okay. I'd be curious to see what this means for Kai Havertz now. Like, he's got to go to the bench. Like, he's just not performing. Sterling got off the mark the other week too. And then Mason Mount doesn't have a goal yet, but he's actually playing well. And it's just, I do think it'll come together for them, but it has to happen sooner rather than later. And then you look at it and you look around and you're like, well, what does this mean for Tuchel? Like, is he on his last legs? Like, I don't know, but he seems very defensive.
Yes, I totally agree with that comment.
Yeah, and I don't know. There is such an interesting team because right now we've had United go through the ringer this season, Liverpool, and now it's Chelsea's turn. And the way they've spent money too seems intriguing to me because I feel like they could have gone out and maybe got a better striker instead of getting like Cucurella. Like, and I like him a lot.
We liked Cucurella, yeah.
It's a lot of money to spend on a right back when you have Reece James, and now he's playing left back for them. And I don't know. They're an interesting team. They've spent a lot of money. They're underachieving, and they have to get better. Well, that's the 3 points of Chelsea.
When I was growing up, one of my favorite teams to watch was the Italian national team and obviously AC Milan. And it's because the way that these teams were coached was solid zonal defending. I think Italy might have been one of the best zonal defending teams I've ever watched play, but they also had teams on their players on their team who could get the job done offensively. Remember Del Piero? Yep. You know, there was Pirlo always was in the attack. There were guys on their team that while they did a very solid job defensively, there were guys who could do the job offensively. And to be one of the best clubs or best teams in the world, you need to have that balance.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? And I think sometimes these managers struggle to find that when they're like, oh, we're going to play good defensive football. Like Mourinho is known for being a good defensive manager, but he also had Drogba. Yeah. Who would score him goals all the time and like was maybe kind of undervalued, I suppose.
So undervalued.
But Drogba would score goals. Lampard would contribute quite heavily. And teams just seem, like you said, like they're just finding it difficult to find a balance between that. And it's like, yes, it's good to have good defense, but also if you're not scoring goals, you're not winning games.
What's the point?
Yeah, so what does it matter at the end of the day? So we'll see. I do think Chelsea will be fine, but next they have West Ham, then they have another derby in Fulham, and then they have Liverpool and Crystal Palace, and obviously Champions League games mixed in there too. Like, it's another tough run of games, and what are they gonna do in like 2 weeks if they keep losing?
Which is so fun for us because we get to watch it all and dissect it. You bring up them having West Ham up next, who just tied Tottenham. You guys know since episode 1, I've been, for some reason, I don't care about West Ham, but this year I seem to care. They drew against Tottenham 1-1. I did not watch the game. I watched the highlights, which I think Tottenham probably had most of the possession, but for them to find a way to score that goal against Tottenham, I think hopefully says a little bit about this team, that they're in the fight. And Liam, I said this to you off camera. I'm not overly sold on Tottenham, and I don't know what it is because of course they have such incredibly talented players and a talented manager. I love their manager, but I'm just, even when I think of Champions League, Tottenham does not pop into my head, and I don't know if I'm going to be extremely wrong about that. I'm just not sold on them.
They're definitely underachieving, I guess. And as we say that, I don't think they've lost a game this season, which is funny. And I just don't think they're playing at the capability of what they're capable of doing yet. But I also think that's a case of getting used to Conte. And he's a very demanding manager. Like there was a quote I saw the other day with Kulusevski, and it was about Conte. And he said, "You are not here to have fun. You are here to win football games."
I love hard-ass coaches.
That is so intense.
Love it.
And it's similar with his, like he talked about his depth of his team, which is kind of ironic because now he's not using his bench at all. Yeah. And he said when they play next, I believe they play Fulham. Yeah, Fulham this weekend, there'll be a lot of changes to the team, but I think they're missing some players right now. Like defending, like Sanchez is just not good enough in my opinion. Like he's the reason he's a backup, and I think Romero, when he comes back, will make a big difference. And they're allowing strange goals, but they also have one of the best attacking three in the league. And Son doesn't have a goal yet this season, I don't think. Or maybe he scored last week, I can't remember. But either way, like he's not scoring at the rate he should be. And what I was thinking of, he would have scored, but it was an own goal against West Ham. That's what it was. So they just need to be more clinical. They need to just dominate games more, I feel like.
But, and then to even play devil's advocate to myself, it is so early on. And one of the things that I love to see about a team in a league or in a tournament the most is when they start slow. I think sometimes a slow burn is better. And I think peaking at the right moment is when it matters.
Yep.
Right now we're seeing City blow everyone out. But what matters is Champions League, quarter, semifinals, and finals. So maybe Tottenham's kind of doing their thing. Like you said, they haven't lost a game yet. And by the time they could potentially be in a Champions League position of being in a quarterfinal or semifinal, we're seeing them play their best football. So I don't know. I have this gut feeling, but I could be very, very wrong.
I think that's a good way to look at it is, yeah, they haven't lost. So what's the negative?
Who the hell am I to say anything? I'm just a crazy lady who has a gut feeling.
And you look at the games they have won, like Southampton was an earned win. When they beat Nottingham Forest the other day, I don't think that was an earned win. They just took chances. They took their opportunities and won. Wolves, they got another one from Harry Kane. West Ham, tough game to go to, especially away. Like, they've got good results. Mm-hmm. Their 2 draws are both away from home. They've took care of business at home. And that's what they say, right? Like, you got to win your home games.
Exactly.
And they're doing that, and they're getting results against good top-table teams. And here we are somewhat complaining about them, which is quite funny. And I think it's fair, though. I think it's justified because I think they are better than what they're showing at the end of the day. And Son needs to start scoring. I think once that starts happening, then everything will just kind of start clicking. And Harry Kane scored. Do you know he had only scored 2 goals in August? Like, no more than 2 goals in August in the Premier League before. Now he has 4 or 5,
he has 4. I just pulled him up. 4 goals, and I'm assuming, 4 games?
Yep.
So he's
scored
right now
2 against Forest.
3rd in the Prem for goals. But I want to ask you, why does everyone hate on Harry Kane when he's in the conversation for one of the best goal scorers in not only the Prem in Europe? Because doesn't he deserve to be in the conversation?
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone hates on him.
It is weird. He's, I think it's because he doesn't have the flash.
Maybe, but I like that.
I like that too. Like he's just a little different from the other goal scorers in the world, right? He likes to really hang back and play almost like a false 9 striker, but also obviously a deadly striker as well. But like Benzema doesn't do that. Lewandowski doesn't. Haaland doesn't. And it's very interesting how, he like goes to these World Cups and he wins the Golden Boot. And it's like, oh, well, he only scored goals against Panama and Tunisia. It's like,
don't even get me started on this conversation.
He's scoring goals.
Farmers teams.
Yeah, isn't that his job? I think he is undervalued for what he actually brings to the world of football and Tottenham, and he's their best player. He is, and he's probably one of the best strikers in the Premier League, and it's him and Haaland, I think. I
remember seeing a TikTok, and this one guy who's English was just absolutely ripping him to shreds, saying he shouldn't be in any type of conversation like this. And I remember looking at Kane's stat at that point in time, and I'm like, this guy puts up numbers. When stats are so valuable in sports, because I always say midfielders don't get enough credit for what they do because they don't necessarily score the goals. When you look at it on the flip side, and Harry Kane actually does have the numbers, how is he being so disrespected?
50 goals in 73 games for England.
I mean, come on.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. I don't know, and I agree. Maybe he's not your flashy guy, but I respect that more. I like the humble, modest.
At the end of the day, I don't care how you put the ball in. I just put it in.
Honestly, yeah.
There was a player who played for Bolton, Kevin Davis, and I don't know if he scored a flash goal his entire career. Every single one was just kind of a hard-worked goal. And
a blue-collar goal.
That's exactly what he was. And just got it done. He scored 100 goals in the Premier League, I believe, and close, if anything. Put the ball in the net. Who cares? That should end the conversation.
Honestly, what more do you need?
Be talking about it.
Totally on the same page. We need to put some respect on Harry Kane's name. Last but not least, Liam, Drake and LeBron investing in AC Milan.
Yeah, very random.
Very random.
But good, I think. Do you have...
Yeah, I have some notes. So this is straight out of an article, so I'm not going to mess this up. An LA-based investment firm called Main Street Advisors includes Drake and LeBron, and they are all closing in on a deal to purchase AC Milan for over $1.2 billion US. So I love this one because I'm an AC Milan fan. And Drake is directly connected to Canada, which means more exposure of football in Canada. And LeBron is, my opinion, the greatest athlete of all time, especially in basketball. The reason I say that is because I think you could put LeBron in any sport in the world in any league, and I'm not saying he'd be the best, but he could play.
He could compete.
Be a football player. He could be like a football/soccer player. He could be a tennis player. This guy's unreal athletic. He already has invested in Liverpool, so I think that they know what they're doing. He's an athlete himself. And I just love the exposure it's going to bring to the Italian club, to Serie A, and vice versa to North America.
Yeah, that's my thing about it is, what does this do now for the Italian game in the US and Canada? Hopefully good. Like, I would love to, like, we actually get pretty good access to it, to be fair, like, to all the leagues. But I would like to see them maybe on the news a little bit more. And I think this could really, do you know what? The key to the world of sports, especially football, is get it in the US and you'll thrive. And it'll be interesting, and it's a great time too, because Serie A is definitely on the rise. There's a lot of good teams in the league, and that's what makes the Premier League so good. And I think that's why North American people like it, because on any given weekend, like, anybody can win. And I think Serie A is kind of getting in that conversation a little bit now, and it definitely just needs some more financial backing for the lower end teams. But perhaps this is what pushes it over the edge. And yeah, Drake and LeBron, probably two of the biggest stars in North America and the world.
I love it. And you know what? I'm really rooting for the Italian clubs in Champions League this year, because I want Serie A to get more respect.
Yeah, I would like to see it too. And you know what? I think there's a lot of good players.
I do too.
And I think there's a lot of underappreciated players. And it's funny, actually, in a way, that Serie A is on the rise and Italy just didn't qualify for the World Cup. Like, kind of a little ironic, I suppose.
I know, and how they tried to, like, squirm their way back in. I'm like, I think we were talking about, this was before we even had any idea about kicked back and talking football, but Liam and I were like, if that happens,
such garbage.
It would have been garbage.
It would have been. I couldn't even believe it was in the conversation, because they literally lost to North Macedonia, and North Macedonia went in the conversation. It just shows what this sport can be sometimes. I could go all day, but no, I won't. I promise.
No, my gosh, we love it. All right, everyone, episode 9, it's in the books. We'll see you next week, and enjoy all of the football matches this weekend.